Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to another episode of the Infertile Diagnosis. This episode of the Infertile Diagnosis is brought to you by the Fertility Reconnect course, brought to you by me, Monica Cox from mymindfulme.com. Now, this course is the course that I would have died for during my infertility years. If you are dealing with unexplained infertility, or if you know you have an autoimmune issue, including thyroid issues, this is the course that's going to get really down to what is going on in your body. We're going to discover together what food you cannot eat and what food you can eat. We're going to work on our mental health, and we're going to work together to build new, long-lasting, healthy routines and habits. So head over to the website, mymindfulme.com, pre-register and get on the list to be one of the first in line. There's only 25 seats available on this course. We're going to have registration on December 1st for 2 weeks, and then the course actually starts on January 4th. So head over to the website for more information, and while you're there, you can become a Mindful Me member for free, and you can actually check out the course and have exclusive access before it goes live. So once again, head over to mymindfulme.com and check out the Fertility Reconnect course. I'm really excited to have today's special guest on. It's Stephanie Roth from Your Fertile Self. Stephanie is a shining example of how if you take control of what is going on, take control of your health, that you can really increase your chances of getting pregnant, whether that's naturally or with some medical assistance. So Stephanie was 42 years old and was diagnosed with severe diminished ovarian reserve, and she was given a less than 2% chance of conceiving with her own eggs. So she took control, and she already kind of had a clean lifestyle, but she dug a little bit deeper into, diet, nutrition. She really started focusing on mental health, got into yoga a little bit more, and within a year, she conceived her son with no major medical intervention. So I love Stephanie's story. I love her passion to help other women do the same now. So I'm really excited to have her on. So without further ado, here we go. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Infertile Diagnosis. Today we have Stephanie, who is a fertility coach, and I wanted to bring Stephanie on because she is our over 40 mom who was successful in getting pregnant.
Yeah.
I also love her story because she didn't mess around. She just got to it. And I'm like, jealous. I wish I would have had that foresight. But I want to kind of, for you to take us back. Like, what were your 20s and even your 30s like living? What were you doing?
Hey, Monica. And first, I just wanted to say thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here and share with the ladies, your viewers and listeners, and just thanks so much for having me. So going back, so I'm 49 now, and began trying to have my first baby, or trying to conceive my first baby in my early 40s when I was 42. So I would say going back to my 20s, the emphasis of my life was definitely more on my career. I was just finishing school. I was really ambitious, really wanted to kind of climb the career ladder, which I did very well. I had a really serious relationship through my college years, and that ended after graduate school, when I just really wanted to be very single-mindedly focused on having my career. And I was very, I'm from the generation of Sex and the City, so I was very much into like being the single girl in the city, kind of doing the single life thing and living in the big city. I live in Washington, D.C. So that was kind of what my 20s were all about. My 30s, I was still very focused on my career and I had advanced very nicely. I would say that my 30s were really focused on trying to find my life partner. Um, so I met my now husband. I was 34, almost 35 when we met, and 38 when we got married. So we were kind of late out of the gate as far as kind of, getting set up in a house and starting to try for kids. And, so my 40s were definitely about becoming a mom.
Yep. And did you guys kind of go straight into trying to conceive, or did you kind of just enjoy each other for a few years?
After we were married, we enjoyed each other for a few years. So we were married for, let's see, we got married in 2008, and it was 2012 when we started trying to have a baby. So we were married for about three and a half, almost 4 years before we got started. So yeah, again, we were just kind of late bloomers.
Well, so you didn't give in to that pressure of society and maybe even everyone around you kind of going, all right, your clock's ticking. What's going on? Let's have kids, Were your doctor saying anything to you?
Well, I was definitely very conscious of my clock ticking. If it had been up to me, I probably would have started trying to have a baby shortly after we got married. My husband really, it was very important to him for us to take that time to kind of, I mean, we were already living together, but to get used to, things do change when you get married. So he really was very important to him to take that time to really get used to being married and get used to each other. And we weren't living in the house where we live now, and we really wanted to kind of get set up in you know, a kind of better home environment for a family. And so he wanted to take the time to make sure we found the right house and all that sort of stuff. So we kind of did all that, kind of on the outset, and then started trying for the child.
Yeah. And during this time, did you ever have concerns about your fertility?
I was concerned about, I was always concerned about my age. You always hear that, and the way that kind of the media usually presents things is like you turn 35 and your fertility just like goes down a cliff. And I mean, then there is something to that. And obviously, it is more of a struggle for women who are of more advanced age. I hate to say older, but of more advanced age. So, so that was always kind of at the back of my head, wondering if it would be a struggle because I was older. But as far as sort of any other sort of fertility issues, I was always pretty healthy. So I think like most people, I thought, well, I'm healthy and he's healthy, and we'll just start trying and we'll get pregnant right away. I mean, everyone thinks it'll happen within a few months, and no one ever thinks that they're going to be the ones who struggle. And I certainly put myself in that category too. Even being older, I didn't really think it would be a struggle.
Yeah. And so you started trying to conceive. When did it dawn on you that you were struggling?
It happened fairly early on. So we started trying, and the second month out of the gate, like, we got pregnant. So I was like, wow, that was really easy. I was so excited. I was like, oh man, that was so easy. And then a couple months after, well, I guess about a month after I got my positive pregnancy test result, I went to the doctor for my first OB visit, and I had found out that I had had a miscarriage. So it was not a viable pregnancy, and I had lost the pregnancy. And there's really nothing that can prepare a person for going to the doctor, like all excited, thinking that you're going to have a baby. And then an hour later, you come out of the doctor's office and you're all of a sudden not having a baby anymore. So that was really devastating. It was I felt like the world had ended as I knew it. And that was, when I first got the first indication that, like, oh, maybe this really isn't going to be as easy as I thought.
Yeah, I mean, when you get pregnant that quickly, when you first try and conceive and then a miscarriage happens, yeah, it can really rock your world when you're dealing with infertility for years and years and years. It's not a great thing to do, but sometimes you build up these defenses. So you walk into an appointment ready for the worst outcome, where
Yeah.
if you haven't done that yet and you just get massively blindsided,
Yeah.
yeah, it's devastating. And even my last miscarriage, I was so confident. I had everything like ticked off. I was doing everything that worked the last time, so this time was going to work, and it didn't. But so where did you go from there then? Did you start getting the regular test of the doctor's office?
So after my miscarriage, it didn't take long for my cycles to come back. And I would say after my cycles came back, we tried again for a couple more months. And then I would say about a few months after my cycles came back, so about 6 months in to my whole journey, I was just like, well, it's time to bring in the big guns. And we called the doctor, called a reproductive endocrinologist, went in for a consult, and began sort of the whole parade of tests. Everything came back okay for my husband, normal for him. Everything looked good. The problem was with me. And my test results were pretty abysmal, actually. I don't know if you want me to just go into all that. So, so my test results were actually pretty abysmal. My follicle stimulating hormone, FSH, was 16.4, which is pretty high. The doctors don't like to see it above 10. And my antral follicle count, when they go in on day 3 and do on day 3 of your cycle and do an ultrasound and start counting the number of follicles that are starting to grow, they like to see that kind of in the 12 to 15 to 16 range. Mine was never higher than 5. And my AMH, anti-Müllerian hormone, which is another test that measures egg reserve, was really, really, really low. It was 0.15. So even at that time I was 42. So even for a 42-year-old woman, like, those results are, that's just a really, really, really low number. It pretty much indicates really low egg reserve. I can't remember now what the official word is that they use for undetectable egg supply left. So between all those test results, the doctor diagnosed me with very severe diminished ovarian reserve and said that I had a very low chance, less than 2%, of getting pregnant with my own eggs, and recommended donor egg IVF as my protocol that would give me the best chance of getting pregnant and having a baby.
So that was that end of story for you,
Yeah, that was pretty devastating, actually.
Yeah, another blind side, surely.
Yeah, that was pretty devastating.
And what was your first reaction to that diagnosis? What were you going to do when you were sat there in the doctor's office?
Yeah, so when I was actually in the doctor's office getting the news, I was pretty just stunned, like you said, kind of blindsided, and you're just kind of shocked, and you're just kind of like, oh, okay, you don't really know what to say, and there's really nothing that you can say, and I needed time to sort of process that news, but I was pretty devastated. When the FSH result came back, that one was 16.4. When that came back, I was kind of like, well, I was kind of expecting that as being older. I was kind of like, well, this is manageable. I can live with this. I can work with this. But when the AMH came back and that it was so low, that was like a punch in the stomach. That was really devastating. I felt just so depressed after that. And so we got the news. We were talking to the doctor and kind of got the whole donor egg IVF speech shortly before Labor Day weekend, the Thursday before Labor Day weekend. And the next day we were leaving to go away for Labor Day weekend to friends of ours who have a beach house in Virginia. We had invited a bunch of us to go for the weekend. So we were going there for the weekend, and I was pretty, I would say pretty quiet that whole weekend, not super social, lots of solitary walks on the beach, just really kind of processing kind of what all this meant for me, and was I going to become a mom, and kind of what would happen after that. And I'd say after that weekend and pretty much the kind of following week, I came to the conclusion that I couldn't control my age. I couldn't control the fact that I had these crappy test results. But there were so many things that I could control, and that's where I was going to focus my energy. And I was just like, okay, I don't have a stockpile of eggs left. I don't even have very many. I've already had a miscarriage, so the ones I have probably just aren't even really very good anyway. But I was like, I just felt like, okay, I've got to have a good one somewhere. And it was kind of my duty to do everything I could to try to find it. So I really was focusing at that point on, kind of controlling the things that I could in terms of, healthy diet and healthy lifestyle and going to bed at a good hour and, taking vitamins, which I even in something kind of minor, like taking vitamins, which I wasn't doing up at that point. So just really kind of focusing on being the healthiest that I could be, and to just, to get really focused on my cycles. So I really have a, really good awareness of my cycles and my fertile period and my ovulation, and, empowering myself with that knowledge to really just kind of, okay, I do have less than a 2% chance, but to do everything that I could within my own power to give myself the best possible chance.
Yeah. And so was this, had you been looking online or seeing anything that gave you this inspiration, or where did this come from? Where did the seed get planted?
So I had been already studying to be a health coach. I've always, well, I don't want to say I'd always lived a healthy lifestyle, but I'd say for the kind of 5 years or so leading up to kind of from my late 30s on, or maybe even kind of my early 30s on, I'd always kind of been very mindful of health. I mean, I wasn't like big health nut, but very mindful of just, kind of taking good care of myself. So I was kind of already on a path, and I was studying to be a health coach. So I was really kind of already kind of sort of on a path to sort of clean living and healthy living. So that wasn't like a big leap for me. The learning about my cycles and my body, like none of that started until I started trying to have a baby. I mean, I was 41 and had no idea that you could only get pregnant a few days out of the month. Like, I mean, that's really embarrassing to say now.
No, the thing is that a lot of people I'm talking to say the same thing. And
like, why aren't girls taught that? Like I'm 49 now. So like from my generation, or, for Gen X, why aren't we taught that? I mean, I'm hoping that that's different for younger girls now, that they are learning these things. And if I had a daughter, I would like make sure to teach her those things.
yeah,
Because that's just, I mean, that's not even like, crazy progressive sex education. I mean, this is just like basic health and basic
right.
understanding of your own body, which is kind of criminal that girls haven't learned this about themselves.
Exactly. And I mean, I think it has changed. I see my younger cousins, they're the millenniums, and they're like talking about condoms on Instagram. So I'm like, I know my generation wouldn't do that. So I hope that the whole sex and periods and, taking control of your fertility is being discussed nowadays a lot more. But yeah, it's crazy. It is crazy to me that is even a step that we have to address with people who are dealing with infertility. Like, do you know when you can get pregnant? And a lot of people are saying no. So
and I see it with my clients all the time, or not, well, often I see it with my clients. Like, they're like, yeah, I'm tracking my cycles, I'm doing the ovulation predictor kits. And I'm just like, oh. They're a good backup tool, but to get really reliable results, you really need to tune into your own body, using the tools that nature has given you, and not, the test strip kits.
Okay. So what was your go-to then? You've decided that you're going to take control. What new things have you introduced in your life to help with your fertility?
Definitely diet is a big one. Food is everything. Food is probably one of the most effective, if not the most effective tool that we can have in our arsenal to fight infertility or virtually any health concern, I would venture to say. Really with female fertility and all for the guys too, but just kind of focusing on female fertility right now, issues with ovulation are the leading cause of female infertility. And, issues with ovulation are by and large caused by, hormone imbalances. I mean, with infertility, the name of the game is the hormones. It's all about the hormones. And it's, our whole female menstrual cycle is just like an intricate dance of hormones each and every single month. And if you can get at the root of those hormone imbalances, you can really go a long way towards, kind of correcting your ovulation, normalizing your cycles, making them regular and consistent. And so much of that can be done through just how and what we eat. Mm-hmm. It's really powerful.
Yeah, it's the science is like way over my head. I try to study it. No, I do study it, but a lot of the times I'm still like, whoa,
Yeah.
and like new things are getting thrown in every month
Yeah.
of what the discovery is. But to break it down very simply, what you put in your mouth gives you life, right? If you
Yeah.
didn't eat or drink
Yeah.
water, you wouldn't live. So that's your step 1 and 2 every day. Where does it
Yep.
go? Your ovaries aren't dealing with that shit. Your brain's not dealing with it. Your gut. Your gut is
Hmm.
dealing with what you put into your
Yeah.
mouth. And
Yeah.
so if your gut's unhappy, it's going to send a lot of signals to everything else and make them unhappy. And that includes hormones.
Yeah. Exactly.
And
Exactly. So.
it's a mind trip to get around, because, here we are talking about people, women aren't being taught the basics of their menstrual cycle. Like, how do we even go from that to going, oh, guess what? Your gut controls most of your hormones. You know what I mean?
It's a lot. It's a
It's
lot
a
to take
lot.
in. It's a lot to take in. I think just really focusing on the basics is such a good idea. I mean, we're always so, preoccupied with, well, what's the latest thing we can try? What's the latest fad? And is there a new supplement that is
Yeah.
going to do the trick? There is no like magic solution. And if we can just get back to basics and focus on just the very simple things of like how we're eating, how much water we're drinking, how we're moving our body, how much sleep we're getting, how we're, handling stress, how we're interacting with our friends and loved ones. I mean, basically how we show up in the world,
Mm-hmm.
and that those are all things that we have the power within our own, those are all things that are within our own power and under our own control. And so in that sense, the fertility journey, there's so much that's, kind of out of our control. But those are all amazing things that we can control each and every single day. And they have a huge impact.
Yeah, definitely.
So really, there's so much that's within our power.
Oh, yeah, a lot. And so you've got your diet, you're tuning in on that. And I don't want to get into specifics because everyone's so different. We all have to find what works for us. Lifestyle and mentally, did you start working on your emotions towards infertility or even towards other things in your life?
I did. I would say that part came later for me. So I really started out with, the diet and the sleep and the vitamins. And I would say about, I don't know, maybe a few months after I started seeing the reproductive endocrinologist. So I had gone back to him and I had told him like, hey, I'm not opposed to donor egg IVF, but it just doesn't feel like the right thing for me right now to start out. And it's so invasive, and I'd love to start out with kind of a, less invasive option at first. And I wanted to try intrauterine insemination, IUI, first. And thankfully he was supportive. So we started out with IUIs. I'm sure my doctor was probably like, yeah, that's not going to work. But he never, to me, publicly, his outward face to me was that he was willing to give that a try, and he was supportive. And I'm so thankful for that. So we started with IUIs. I did come out with a positive after the first one. I had another loss. And then after the second IUI, I guess, I don't know, my hormones might have kind of gone crazy. Sure, but I went in to try the third IUI. The second one was a negative. I had a canceled cycle. I went in on day 3 for baseline testing, and my hormones were kind of crazy, and I had cysts, and they basically told me like, you can't do it this month, come back next month. And it ended up being 3 months away from the RE's office, just due to just travel schedules and holidays. And, every month I'd get my period and I'd look at the calendar and I'd be like, oh crap, I can't do it this month. I'm going to be away. So it ended up being, I didn't go back for another IUI cycle for a few more months. And so during those few months, it was kind of an imposed upon me break from treatment. But during those few months, I kind of used the time to reflect. And I was just sort of like, okay, I'm doing all this stuff, I'm eating well, I'm sleeping well, and I'm taking vitamin, I'm doing all the right stuff, so to speak, but I'm still having trouble, and I'm still not getting anywhere. And what else do I need to do? Is there something else I need to do? Am I missing something? And I really sat and kind of, waited for sort of internal guidance to come to me. If we sit in silence with ourselves and tune into our intuition, the answers always come to us. And so I'm a longtime yoga practitioner, so I'm experienced with sort of that process of sitting in silence and and kind of waiting for guidance to come. And it did. And that guidance told me that the piece that was missing was my mind. I wasn't focused. I think in my heart, I still was unsure of whether or not it would really work for me. And so when I kind of intuitively felt like I needed to work on my mindset some more, I started tuning in and listening to myself. And, we have internal conversations with ourselves all day, every day. Most of the time it's like white noise. We don't really hear it, but we do. And so I really took the time to kind of listen to the conversations I was having with myself. And I was telling myself things like, well, you're too old. Of course, you're the one who is going to have crappy test results. Like, why would you think you would not be the one with crappy test results? Of course it's going to be you. They're going to be the one with the problem. Your eggs are crap. You don't have very many. The ones that you have left are like crap. And I said also to myself, maybe you're just not meant to be a mom.
Oh, I think I said that to myself a lot of times. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Well, those are really powerful words.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I finally realized, like, holy shit, like these are the things I'm saying to myself, I knew I had to turn that around. And I knew that I was like, okay, I really don't believe in myself. I don't really believe that this is going to happen for me. And I need to turn this around because I have already the physical odds against me, the less than 2% chance thing. I already have that against me. And that's like biology. And so if I have like a crappy attitude about it all, on top of it, I'm never going to have a chance. And I could work on changing my attitude, so to speak, and it still might not happen because I have the 2% odds. But unless and until I change that, I'm never going to have a chance. Mm-hmm. So I knew that it was really important to begin working on my mindset. And I did. I started taking up meditation. I started doing visualizations and repeating affirmations to myself every day. And in the beginning, it's sort of like you kind of fake it till you make it kind of thing. I mean, in the beginning, you're kind of forcing yourself to say these things. But after time, it becomes so much easier because it becomes more real and it becomes more genuine and it becomes really from your heart. And it becomes what you really, truly believe. And then you do cultivate that faith and that inner knowing that it will happen.
Yeah.
It's all kind of part of that manifestation process, I think. And it's really powerful.
It is. And it is very woo-woo. And it is very hard to get your head around that it actually is very important. And like you say, you have to fake it till you make it. I think most people who knew me before infertility and even during like most of my years and the me now, they're just like, who's this person? And I was like, I still say fuck. It's all right. I'm still kind of. But
you're right, Monica. It's a really transformational experience.
And I think
living with infertility, it changes your life. It does not define us. It does not define who we are. We are so much more than this journey, but it is something that when you have walked this path and lived this journey, it forever changes who you are. And it is always part of who you are.
Yeah. And I think you nailed it when you said, until you start realizing that you're beating yourself up and you're telling yourself that maybe you're not worthy enough to be a mother, until you realize that you're doing that to yourself, you won't move forward in your mental process because you think, oh, no, I do, you're very good at tricking yourself to believe that things are okay. And you don't need to do these things mentally.
The awareness is so key because it's sort of like they tell people in AA or recovery, the first thing you have to do is admit powerlessness over your problem, right? That's like you have to reach that point before you can move forward. I think it's sort of the same thing with infertility. I mean, it's not that we have to admit powerlessness over it. It's just more that we just really need to reach that very keen state of awareness of, really kind of where we're at. Before we can kind of move forward.
Yeah.
And the only way to do it is to just go through it.
Yeah, 100%. I know we're on a time crunch, but tell us the end of your journey then, because it's a short one, which is just amazing because you didn't dick around. You just got to the core of what you needed to do.
Yeah, so my journey was a short one. It was 13 months from the first month that we started trying to the month where I successfully conceived my son, who is starting kindergarten this fall. He's almost 6. So I did conceive by IUI. I did 4 rounds of IUI. When we were getting ready for the 4th IUI, and it was going to be the last one, I had responded really, really well to medication. And my doctor, who had previously said donor egg IVF is your only hope, when we went in for the 4th IUI, he said, well, if this doesn't work, if you want to try a round of IVF using your own eggs, I'd be supportive of that. So I was like, I won. I won. I proved it. I proved he was wrong. But that cycle ended up working. So on the 4th round of IUI, I successfully conceived my son. It was an IUI cycle with Clomid and injectable FSH. And yeah, so I think also going into that final round of IUI, maybe it was all the mindset work that I had done, Monica. I don't really know what I can attribute it to, but I just knew intuitively that cycle was going to be a successful cycle. Again, I don't know how I knew, but I just knew that it was going to work. And so it wasn't a surprise. I mean, it wasn't a surprise when I got a positive pregnancy test. It was still exciting and exhilarating and, oh my God, this is awesome, but it wasn't a surprise. And when I went in for my beta and the nurse called and said it was a good number, and then my betas kept going up, the way they should. None of it was a surprise. And even 2 days before I got my positive pregnancy test, I had spotting, and I was like, oh, this must be what implantation bleeding is. Mm-hmm. And it was just all like, I just knew. I don't know how I knew, but I just knew. Yeah. So I had a very uneventful pregnancy. There was no complications with age or anything. In fact, after one of my the first trimester screen, when they go and look for genetic issues at the end of the first trimester, it's a big milestone in testing at the end of the first trimester. When the genetics counselor called me back with my results, she said they were typical of a 31-year-old woman. And I was 43 at the time. Right. So it was a very uneventful pregnancy. Everything went well. Baby's healthy. The baby looks good. Mom's healthy. So it was really such a wonderful way to kind of close that part of my journey, after kind of all the worrying about age and am I too old and less than 2% chance and all that stuff, to just have, a very kind of typical pregnancy was just really wonderful.
I love your story that you became your own hero quickly. I think for a lot of us, we tend to just hope for, the medical side to just take us and guide us. And then when that's not working out, then we kind of go to the holistic side and try that. Maybe your background of already becoming a health coach to help you with that. But I think it's truly amazing that you became your own hero over 40 and you are showing people that it is doable and possible to happen, and you just have to put in the work. And thank you so much for sharing your story. You kind of
thank you so much, Monica. I really appreciate it.
So my last question for you today is, we talk about hindsight being a bitch. With everything that you've learned, you've been through, you've studied, you've done, what is the advice to anyone going through infertility at the moment? What's your number one piece of advice for them?
I would say, I think I have 2. First, I would say, believe in yourself and listen to your intuition. Learn how to tap into your intuition. I was going to say, just jump in if you're wavering on something, but I think listening to our intuition is so key. It was key for me. I think that's why what my intuition was telling me is what gave me the strength to go to my doctor and basically tell him that I didn't want to do what he recommended and I wanted to do something else. Because my intuition told me that what he was recommending for me wasn't the right path for me. So we all have the gift of intuition. It's not just like, crazy psychics on the street corner. I mean, we all have the gift of intuition. We all just learn how to use it to a different degree. So I would just encourage anyone listening or watching to just learn how to tap into your own inner voice, because when you listen to your own inner voice, you always win. That voice is never wrong.
Right? And you're talking to yourself anyways. I know
Right.
all of us do it. So maybe just, I don't know, shut the, negative side off and just start listening to the more positive side of you. And I mean, I know it's easier said than done, but we are all talking to ourselves, and that 100% is one of the best advice out there is, just go with your gut.
Yeah.
We've been saying it for billions of years, listen to your gut.
It never steers us wrong. And when we do, it helps us to believe in ourselves.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much. I know we were having some technical issues before we got on this call. Thank you so much for pulling through and doing this, because I'm super excited to share this on the podcast. And you're going to, I think, inspire a lot of women who are, going to be older moms like us. So thank you so much for being with us. And I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, Monica. Bye-bye.
My pleasure. Bye. A few things before you go. Remember, all the links to connect with Stephanie are down below in the show notes. Remember, you can also watch me waving my hands in the air over on the YouTube channel Fertility Reconnect, and there's loads of great other videos on there to help you reconnect your fertility. If you're really loving what we're doing here on the Infertile Diagnosis, please leave us a rating or a review. It really helps the podcast, and we would love to know what we're doing right and how we can improve in the future. Please email us at me@mymindfulme.com with any questions that you would like to be answered on the infertile diagnosis on our Q&A sessions that we do once a month. Thanks once again for tuning in, and looking forward to having you next week on the Infertile Diagnosis.